let's kick off with some intros. Alex, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll go next. Hey guys, I'm Alex Jackson. I'm head of product and marketing at Carve. So a lot of the stuff that you see and experience from Carve usually goes through me. So hopefully you've had a good experience and you're loving it. But we love to hear your feedback, even if you're not. So please do share. And I'm joined by Dave, who can do his own introduction.
Hi guys, I'm Dave Jenkins. I am the senior product manager for coaching at Carve. So it's my job to basically make Carve the best coaching experience possible.
Nice. And obviously, Ted, do you want to do a little intro as well?
Yeah, I'm Ted Ligety. I ski raced for 18 years, won 2 Olympic gold medals, 5 world championships, 5 World Cup GS titles, raced on the World Cup for 18 years, and long time free skier, loved ripping arcs, and just joined on with Carve this year and super impressed with what we have going on.
No pressure, Charlie, but do you want to follow that?
I was going to say, Alex, thanks for letting me introduce myself after Ted. I'm Charlie. I'm the lead data scientist at Carve. So my team builds and designs ski IQ and other features like tip recommendations. And yeah, it's been an absolute privilege to have a look at Ted's data since he's come on board. And I'm really excited to share what we've been looking at with you all today.
Brilliant. Well, without further ado, let's kick off. I think you should already all be able to see the little deck presentation that we've got going, and we're going to try and keep to an hour, but as always, if we do overrun and we don't have time to get to all your questions, and I'm sure there'll be plenty, please just keep typing them in the Q&A box. I'm going to be replying to as many as I can throughout, and if I don't get to reply to them, do get in touch through the app or on the Car Skiers community, and we will get to you. I'm very sorry in advance if I don't have the time. So can we move to the next one? So today we've got 3 rough sections to this session. First of all, Alex is going to be having a bit of chat with Ted about his experience, his career, and what has made the art of his term so special and world-beating. Then Charlie's going to be diving into the science behind that term. So what does it mean to have a term that perfect? Looking at specifically one metric, which we will come to shortly, and why that is such an important metric for Ted and for you. And that leads us on to the final section, where Dave will be speaking with Ted about drills that you can do to improve that specific metric. It's a little bit of a mystery, but we will reveal it shortly. So I'm going to hand over to Alex to give a bit of context on our work with Ted and introduce you to one of the best skiers of our time.
Nice. Well, thanks, Amelia, for the warm up. I think what I wanted to share with you guys here was a little bit of our rationale for wanting to work with Ted. And obviously, we've been around for a few years. We've actually had our eye on Ted as a partner for a couple of years, although he doesn't know that probably. And yeah, we were trying to find the right time to start working with you, Ted, because you guys are aware, obviously, Carve is pretty well optimized right now for on-piste skiing. And what we're trying to do is find the skier who's probably like the most aspirational for on-piste skiing. And the way we see skiing is a little bit like off-piste is pretty well represented. There's Freeride World Tour, there's loads of stuff in the park, there's a lot of stuff in racing. But what we thought we could do by partnering with Ted was bring something really magical and try and make that something that the average skier could aspire to. And obviously, Ted, you're known for being a pretty interesting guy in the race scene. And for us, I think that little bit of extra spark of personality, the fact that you pushed out there with your own brand Shred and you kind of bucked some of the industry a little bit with some of your views. For us, that was really important because, you know, we're trying to like buck a fairly well-established industry. Obviously, we love working with ski instructors, so by no means are we trying to sort of compete with them, but we are trying to forge our own way and do something a little bit different. So I hoped we would be kindred spirits, and it's been amazing working with Ted so far. I mean, this is just the start. We've got many more seasons ahead of us, but in terms of our rationale, obviously we wanted to bring this like very magical but very dynamic and exciting turn and try and quantify what makes that so good. And Ted, obviously with you, we built this program where we targeted it at like the average intermediate guy on the slopes, or woman, obviously. And our goal is to try and get you as close as we can to getting those big edge angles, because it's super fun. And the smile on your face when we shot the videos with you a few weeks ago just made me like personally also really want to get a little closer to that turn. So that's a little bit of our rationale. I mean, I've got some questions for you, Ted, to kind of help introduce you a little bit to our audience if they don't know you. So you just click us along there, David. Nice. Oh, some paper. That's very nice. Next slide. So I think, Ted, one of the cool things you told me when we were filming the other week was that you weren't actually like brilliant as a child, and it's kind of interesting to understand, you know, your experience of going from maybe not the strongest skier, like what clicked and what changed to level up your own skiing.
For my own skiing, I think actually I credit my success later on a lot to not being the greatest junior. I mean, I was like on the park ski team between like 10 to 14 years old. I was like the 4th or 5th best kid born in 1984 in my own age group. So I think that actually like fired me up more. It made me work harder. I think like that made me analyze skiing. I was always like kind of a ski nerd in the sense that like I watched a ton of video and I was like a real student of it. And I think like because of that, I learned a lot of like the good technical skills. I just like couldn't figure out how to like go fast in a race course. And once I started reaching into my more late teens, I started to get a little bit stronger physically, but then also because I was like not the best, like I spent a lot of time free skiing and experimenting with my skiing. So you can see this video. I think I'm probably like 11 years old here. And still on straight skis, obviously. But when I was about, 13, 14 years old, the carving skis came out and my buddies and I would just go rip around the mountain and try to like do arc offs, like so you could like lay it over the furthest. So I was trying to like drag my elbow on the ground, later dragging our armpits. And that was just like experimenting and playing on our skis, like not trying to do anything coached or like rigid. It was like just kind of freestyle carving. And I turned out to like my body worked really well for that style of skiing. And I was able to bring some of those things I learned there into a race course. And I think if I was one of the better kids, I wouldn't have necessarily had the permission to like take that non-coach, non-traditional viewpoint of skiing and approach and implement it. And what's ended up being like my greatest skill, like on the World Cup, was being able to like lay it over really hard, pulling a tight radius, but they were not like skills that were coached and traditionally are coached in that same like style. So I really credit, just that play on my skis and then all that coming together, once I got strong enough and started figuring out like a couple other little things on my skiing.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool to see that you still obviously find it very exciting to pull those kinds of turns, considering, you spent 20 years, putting the ski over like that. I was going to ask if it was like more of a technique kind of breakthrough that you had or more of an attitude one, but to be honest, it sounds like your attitude to skiing is kind of unlocked a lot for you there. It wasn't like you weren't stuck up about it, you were kind of playing and experimenting.
Yeah, I've always been like a tinkerer, and like I really like, one of the things I loved most about ski racing was like the whole kind of like tinkering aspect of it, whether it was like playing with your equipment or tinkering with your own skiing. I did a lot of free skiing. I mean, when you're racing World Cup, it's hard to like get enough time where you like can get good quality free skiing in, but that was still an important piece. Like after the season, I'd come home and ski Deer Valley until the day it closed and go in the backcountry. And I mean, those were all like valuable experiences and expanding like my ability on snow. But like free skiing was the place where I could like kind of experiment and push my limits. And I think that like helped in the race side of things, that I had all these like other non-traditional tools that like helped me kind of recover, but also approach a turn maybe differently.
Nice. And yeah, I'm going to come back to that because I think there's some interesting stuff we can all learn from that. I think it would be cool for the audience here. I did hear that you've lost an inch of height through to racing. So I wanted to kind of, can you help us understand what it feels like to race like at the extremes like you've done, and why are people anxious? What's going on?
Yes, I mean, World Cup, especially when you start racing on the World Cup, it's icy surfaces, and in a typical, or like in a GS course, we'll be hitting 3 to 6 Gs. So that's up to 6 times our body weight. And, at my height and when I was at my best in ski racing, I was between 190 and 200 pounds. And so that's, almost 1,200 pounds of force on your back, and you're in a flexion and rotation. That's obviously not like the perfect position for your body. So, and one of the many things that ended up doing in my career was my back. But yeah, my first year on the ski team when I was 19 years old, I was 5'11". I'm 5'10" now. So, lost a lot of disc height there, but just the huge G-force is one of the most attractive things of racing, that, the feeling of bending your ski up, like where it's super bent up and then it's releasing slingshot. It almost feels like you're in a race car where you're like feeling the acceleration out of a turn. The crispness of arcing, just like feeling your ski going on a track that's only a millimeter wide and being able to hold your body at parallel to the snow, essentially, on a lot of these turns. It's such a cool feeling. There's not many feelings out there. I mean, I think if you're flying a fighter jet, or, you're flying, like driving a super fast race car, there's like not many things out there that you can go do and experience those kind of forces and precision. And that was just really fun. I mean, that's like what I love so much about ski racing, was like being at your limit and feeling those forces and that acceleration, that competitiveness.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I let you down by being a very slow driver when we were in, but no, I mean,
you had, so a lot of people, when they're like backseat driving, they're always trying to push on the brake for people, with their foot, like in the passenger seat. I was always trying to step on the gas for you, especially going up the road in Solden, where I've gone fast up that road a lot.
Yeah, it kind of leads on to another question I wanted to ask you, which is really around sustaining success. So, for most of us, when we ski, we kind of get to a level we're happy with, even at sort of intermediate level, and then we kind of stop and we're like, okay, this is me, I'm kind of happy here. Obviously, as a racer, you can't do that if you want to stay on top, and you stayed on top for a long time. What was it about your attitude that kept you there?
Always trying to learn more. I was always analyzing my skiing, analyzing the skiing of my competitors, often like picking up like things that I saw in people skiing that, maybe weren't like, obviously, like in my career, I was analyzing the likes of Marcel Hirscher and people like that a lot, but even like guys who are a little bit lower in the line, when I'd see them running first or second, the second run, so they're, in the late 20s, like, ooh, what this guy's doing is cool, interesting. I'll have to, go back in video and check this out. Or when I was coming up my first couple of years in World Cup, trying to like figure out where I was and what like niche I could really exploit to become better in the sport. And so I think just being like a student of it, and like I had that attitude from being a kid, like willing to experiment and play, and like not just be so solely focused on like the super, like traditional technical Austrian, style school of thought, like being willing to play with my body. I was, major equipment tinker. So all those things, allowed me to, use my skills in my own body to, maximize what I could actually do on skis.
Nice. Yeah, and those attributes, I mean, you brought them into carve as well, and obviously we'll talk about your kind of engineering approach and how you're going to tinker with some of the coaching as well, which would be cool. But yeah, I think from my side, one of the things that I think might be interesting for our community is also a bit more of the emotional side of how you kind of perform, because skiing is quite punishing. Even if you're average on the slope and the conditions aren't great, it can be quite bruising. I think racing is particularly so, because there's so many people and the conditions make it hard to win all the time. Is there something in the kind of emotional approach to the sport that's helped you, I guess, stay sharp or bounce back, that maybe like average skiers could learn from?
I mean, ski racing, it's very I think I'm of course biased, but I think it's the hardest mental sport out there, in the sense that you only have, a minute and a half of opportunity to go out there and do your sport, and you have to nail it. Like you can't just figure it out 30 seconds in, like, oh, now I'm in the rhythm of it, like it's done. Or if you push too hard and you make what is seemingly a small mistake that can put you in the fences or make it so you lose enough time that you have no chance of winning. So it's really difficult in the sense that, yeah, the margin of error is tiny, but at the same time, like, because it is so mental, if you dwell on all those millions of things that could go wrong in a single run, you'll drive yourself crazy. So I kind of approached it with a little bit of a calculated nonchalance, like, trying to like prepare the best I could, like had a game plan, and then like let it go in the start gate and just go and just ski, not think about it too much. And that's when I could ski my best. I remember like races. One that really jumps out is like the 2010 Olympics. I was the favorite in giant slalom, and like, of course, like I won the Olympic gold in 2006, the year or the Olympics before, and wanting to be able to, repeat gold medal, and being like so in my own head about the whole race, like thinking about every little like aspect of the course and what I need to do here and there, and not letting myself just go. And it ended up being a 9th place run and an extremely frustrating experience, but also like an enlightening experience, like knowing and understanding like that is not the recipe for success for me. Like I need to let myself go. And then that ended up transpiring to have like the next best 5 years of my career afterwards. So definitely like a good learning experience there. But yeah, having like a little bit of a carefree attitude. I mean, it's a very technical sport. You have to be like a very astute student of it. But also like you have to go with the punches. Like not everything is perfect. Really, basically never anything is perfect in skiing, or especially in racing. So just having the ability to be adaptable is always been an important skill.
Yeah, and learning is a very bumpy journey. Obviously, we spend all our time thinking about learning, and our community of people who ski with carve, they know all about this. Sometimes you get really focused on something, you'll get, a bit wound up on focusing on outside ski pressure or something like that. And sometimes it helps just to go and rip for a bit and then come back to it later. So final couple of questions, because we've got to move on to some more sort of instructional stuff that will really help our listeners. But you had a few days to play with carve in Zolden and Mount Hood. Obviously, we're getting into the season, so you'll be skiing a lot more with it. But it'd be great to get your take on like what's captured your attention about carve. Is there something that's kind of really piqued your interest in the product?
Yeah, so I mean, as a racer, like my only way to really analyze my skiing was through feeling, coaching, and also just video. So I mean, I think a tool like this would have been really helpful, especially like, when you're trying to like figure some technical sides of things out. So I had back surgery a year and a half ago, and when I skied with carve, I was like, I knew in my brain that like my left-sided turns were weaker. Like I was a little bit softer, and coming from the race side of things, I'd seen like carve out there, but I was somewhat skeptical of maybe what it could measure and like how accurate it was, and it like immediately picked up on some of that like softness I feel, and some of the things I knew about my own skiing, the unit in the app was able to pick up, which was very surprising to me and validating that like actually things that you guys are measuring are things that I think about in my own skiing, and they're a feeling, and then they can now be put into like a quantitative state, which I think is really interesting and would have been I think a valuable tool, especially in my formative years like skiing. But so I think it's a really cool tool to gamify skiing in a sense, but also like allows you to pick apart some pieces of your skiing that you maybe didn't really understand what was happening there, and now you can actually quantitate it.
Yeah, and awesome things about working with you is we've obviously got Charlie, we've got a whole team of people. You're going to give us a new lens, a new insight, and it will really help us push everything forwards, because we're at the start of our journey. We're kind of tinkerers at heart as well. And so to combine with your knowledge and experience already has been absolutely incredible for our team. So yeah, I mean, we're going to dive into more of that detail coming up. We have a couple of questions for the audience. So basically what we want to know is, and this is a poll which should come up. So for the people on the line, what do you think is the most fundamental metric as part of a perfect turn? So we've got the carved ones here. So let us know, which of these do you think is the most important part of a perfect turn? Obviously, we know Ted's answer, and we're gonna share that with you, but I don't want to spoil the results. So I see some early edging, some start of turn, end of turn, outside ski pressure, shape. Pretty strong on balance, start of turn, end of turn, and also on early edging. Good to see. 150 people so far, pretty good. Give it a couple more minutes. No, Amelia drives a hard bargain on the time. Brilliant. Okay, so we're seeing start of turn, end of turn, early edging, and outside ski pressure as the most important ones. And then next question is, which metric do you think is Ted's sort of secret weapon as part of a perfect turn? So what do you think Ted's going to answer to this? A lot on edge angle. It's kind of a two-horse race. This is early edging or is edge angle. Yeah, so what if I told you guys that most people haven't got this right? I don't know if you can you change your answers midway? We're going to see everything go out of edge angle. Cool. Okay, so actually there's 4 very, very smart people in here that should be skiing just like Ted. So the answer is, and this is really the foundation of the work we've been doing with Ted, is all around edge similarity. So to unlock that early edge, to unlock that really high edge angle, edge similarity is definitely one of the most fundamental platforms in skiing. And I think generally, like, even if you look at this graphic on screen, you need the skis to work with each other. And the moment you don't have that edge similarity, that inside ski is getting in the way, right? And that's really basically blocking the turn from progressing. So what we've got today is basically an exploration of edge similarity and also the training that we've made with Ted. I mean, Ted, it might be good just to get your take on this before we kick off, and then I think I'm handing over. So Ted, edge similarity in a nutshell, why have you chosen to focus on this with us? Why was that the platform you wanted to build it all on?
The reason I like to focus on edge similarity is that it's something I still focus on in my skiing. It's kind of like an unnatural movement to have like both shins parallel to each other, especially when you start laying it over. But when you start laying it over, like, an only way to get big edge angles is for your shins to be, parallel, moving in unison. You can't actually, if you're like inside leg is up and down, it goes in your body and blocks you. And actually, like, then the inside ski catches and you actually can't stay balanced through the apex and moving into the next turn if your edges are in vastly different edge angles. So edge similarity is the key to be able to like get really high edge angles, but also like to have the most control in the arc. Being able to arc both edges is the way to pull a tighter radius, and also stay more balanced throughout the turn. So that's, I think, why I've focused on that, and still, like, throughout my entire career, that's like one of the biggest focuses I've always had, because I think when you start to feel uncomfortable in your skiing, or if it gets bad light or whatever it is, people have the tendency to use that inside leg as maybe an outrigger or a balancing piece, which is, if you're like really low edge angles, then that, I guess, works. But if you're starting to like try to go with higher speeds and be able to control your speed on steeper terrain, like having edge similarity is really important, really crucial to be able to ski at the most control and also ski the cleanest.
Awesome. So we're going to go a little bit deeper on that topic today. So I think Charlie is going to give us a very exciting breakdown of the work that we've done with you, Ted, and trying to articulate some of that using carve. So over to you, Charlie.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So yeah, I'm going to break down the aspects of Ted's turn that make it so good by looking at his raw data and comparing it to other skiers of differing ability levels. But first, I want to just touch a little upon the technology that enables us to do this. So next slide, Dave. Yeah, so at Carve, we stream the raw data from our sensors to the phone over Bluetooth 20 times a second. This data is then processed in real time on the device by the real brains of Carve, and that's something we call the engine. This is a processing engine on the device that does everything from detecting that you're skiing, to calculating your ski IQ, to deciding the tip that you're going to receive. But we also stream this data to the cloud after each run. And on our servers, we have this internal data science platform that you can see in these two images here. On the left, we've got Dave talking Ted through some of the data on the platform from when they were skiing in Solden. And on the right, you can actually see an example of the raw data. It's a screenshot of what we can see through this platform. So we use this every day in the data science and product teams to try and understand the mechanics of the ski turn for all ability levels to help us design better coaching and also improve our algorithms to pick up on different aspects of skiing. But the great thing is when we skied with Ted, we were able to break down his turn in unprecedented detail, which was just really exciting. So before we jump into the raw data, I'm just going to have a quick think about what makes Ted's turn so great. He's touched upon it already, but what Ted is able to do is get very, very early edge angles and get them really high and have a smooth build up and rapid release of outside ski pressure. So when he is able to lay his turns right over, he's getting these super high edge angles. But what he's able to do that other people can't do is to keep maintaining a very clean arc. So this enables him to have a very dynamic turn with a tight radius. And this is what's helped him to achieve Olympic and World Cup glory, because he's able to get a really clean and fast line through the race course. So yeah, now let's dive into the data and see what this looks like. So this is the data from one of Ted's runs when we skied with him in Solden. On the x-axis, we have the percentage through the turn, and on the y-axis, we have the edge angle in degrees. So the green line is his outside ski, and the gray line is his inside ski. Immediately, we can see that his outside ski is higher than his inside ski, but we can also see what he's known for. We can see the early edging coming in very quickly. By just 20% through the turn, he's already approaching 70 degrees edge angle, which is pretty crazy. But what Ted's secret weapon is, as we've just discussed, is edge similarity. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about what this is. So edge similarity basically looks at how similar the application and then release of your edge angles are. So to get the highest score, your inside ski and your outside ski will be tipping on edge at the same time, and then they release at the same time. Basically, what we're looking for is a similar shape of the edge angle curve between your inside ski and your outside ski. And as Ted's mentioned, what this looks like when you see someone doing this is that their shins stay exactly parallel, and you can see this in the GIF on the left here of Ted skiing. So if we take a second look at Ted's turn and the edge angle data, yeah, this is basically how similar these two lines are. And as we can see here, they're very similar lines. And in fact, Ted was able to get a score of 93% edge similarity in this run, which is unbelievably high. So that's a quick look at Ted's turn. But now I'm going to compare him to other skiers so that we can see what's different about him. So on the left, we have Ted still, and on the right, we have an intermediate skier. So there's a few interesting things to take away here. Firstly, the most obvious thing is it's much lower, obviously. So they only reach an edge angle of 30 degrees, whereas Ted's approaching 80. Ted's increasing his edge angle very quickly at the start of the turn, whereas they are increasing much more slowly. Ted's able to hold his edge angle for a very long time. By 2/3 of the way through the turn, he's still at over 60 degrees, which is a very high edge angle. And lastly, the intermediate's inside ski is flat for a long period of the turn. So you can see the grain line staying flat whilst the outside ski in green is increasing. Around halfway through, they match their inside ski to their outside ski. But because they've not been doing the same thing for the first half of the turn, this results in a much lower edge similarity. So in summary, Ted has a higher edge angle, he reaches it very quickly, holds it for a long time, and his inside ski is very similar to his outside ski. So now I've got a video example of an intermediate skier. So I'm going to show you what this type of skiing looks like and the impact that it has on the pressure data as well as edging data. And understanding this is the first step to improving it if this is a skier like you. So what this skier is doing is basically starting the turn with a wedge, and some people call this a step turn or a stem Christie, but they are initiating with an edge and then stepping their inside ski around once they start the turn. So if we see the edge angle data, Dave? Here we go. So yeah, again, we can see this gap at the start of the turn where they're initiating with a higher edge angle on their outside ski compared to their inside ski. So what they're doing here is they're using their inside ski basically as a crutch to enable them to start turning their skis. But this results in a much lower edge similarity score. And for this skiing, they got a score of 17%. But this doesn't just impact your edging data, it also will impact your pressure data. So because you're using your inside ski as a crutch at the start of the turn, you have more inside ski pressure at this moment. And you can spot this in your pressure heat map on the app by looking for a darker color at the start of the turn for your inside ski and the end of the turn having a much lighter color. So I would recommend people who have this pattern in their data to try and transition their weight to their outside ski earlier on in the turn. By removing the weight off the inside ski, you'll find it easier to tip both skis at the same time, which will result in a higher edge similarity score. But I'm going to wait until Dave's section later where he's going to run you through some drills and things about how to improve your edge similarity in more detail. Next, let's get back to Ted's data and this time compare him to an elite athlete instead of an intermediate. So as you might expect, they both get super high edge angles, both approaching 80 degrees. They both have a nice rounded shape indicating they're holding this high edge angle. But what is interesting is that the World Cup skier has a lower edge, inside edge angle throughout the turn. This means they're doing a bit more of an A-frame where the outside ski is much higher than the inside ski, which in turn has an impact on the edge similarity score. So as we know, Ted got a score of 93 and this skier on the right got a score of 90. So still a very, very good score. Obviously they're an elite athlete, but what's interesting is that we've compared Ted now against an intermediate skier, but also an elite athlete. And the common theme is that Ted's edge similarity is better than both of them, which really indicates why it's such an important thing to work on for all people. So yeah, now I'm going to run through a video example of not an elite athlete, but an advanced skier skiing with a bit of an A-frame. So I'll run through why this is happening and the impact it has on other metrics, so you can spot this issue in your own skiing. So yeah, this is someone performing a carving turn with an A-frame. Visually, we can see this because they have a triangular shape from their knees down to their skis, indicating their edge angle is higher on their outside ski compared to their inside ski. Looking at their graph, their edge angle graph here, we can see the outside ski is much higher than their inside ski, indicated with these red lines showing how far this gap is. So this is really interesting because the skis are at different edge angles. This means that they're basically turning on different radius arcs. So when this happens, the skier has to compromise either their inside ski or their outside ski and skid it to make it catch up with their other ski. And this differing rotation will impact the rotary metrics because the skis are not turning it in the same way. So when this happens, you quite often will see a lower parallel skis score. So I've included some metric examples here of this skier, and we can see that their edge angle is pretty high. It's a 63 because they've got this A-frame, but their edge similarity score is below their target. And most importantly, their parallel skis is way below their target. So this is a good way to check your own data to see if this is a problem that you have. So yeah, next time you're skiing and you get a low edge similarity score and you're of an ability level kind of 80 to 110, I would check your pressure data at the start of the turn to see if you're initiating with a wedge. And if you're at a higher level, 120 to 150, check your parallel skis metric. And if that's below, you may well be skiing with a bit of an A-frame and your skis are not rotating together.
It's the flying V.
Exactly. So yeah, if you're skiing with a friend, I would also recommend you to try out our new feature, which is the video coach. And what that enables you to do is they will take a video of you skiing, and then it will match the video to your ski IQ for every turn. So you can really see what you look like and how that relates to your ski IQ. So we've seen in a video examples of an intermediate and advanced skier, but what about the very, very best? Some of you might have seen Ted's run on the leaderboard, and I'm excited to unveil here video coach footage of Ted actually skiing this run. So we can all see what gets a ski IQ of 160 and this edge similarity of 93. So yeah, there's a few interesting things to see from this video. So yeah, we can see clearly Ted's reaching super high edge angles, and his inside ski is tucked up under his body, which is enabling him to get this high edge angle on his inside ski. His shins are parallel throughout the turn, in creating this high edge similarity score. And you can see how consistent the ski IQ is for every turn. They're all between kind of 150 and 160 or above. So yeah, Ted, I want to get your thoughts on this run. Is this as good as it gets for edge similarity, or could you do any better?
There's always room for improvement for sure. I mean, this is a good run. I mean, it's like a nice like rip and turn. Yeah, I mean, I'm always like working on, as you say, edge similarity. I mean, on a slope like this, like trying to lay it over and getting my hip on the snow is always like just kind of like a fun feature of what I'm trying to do, and getting, trying to get 90 degrees of edge angle out there. And yeah, I mean, of course you can like always be cleaner. I'm definitely like better on my right hand side, like because I am a little bit weaker on my left side because my back, like it is a little bit squishier on that side. But that's what I think is like unique about carve, is it could pick that up a little bit, versus, the average person watching this video is going to have a hard time saying my left footers are a little bit squishy.
Yeah, definitely. That's so interesting. And then I'm interested to know what does it feel like when you really get this edge similarity at this high edge angle? What should we be looking for there?
It feels like your skis are working together. So even though, most of your weight is on your outside ski, like your inside ski still feels like it's tracking really cleanly. And then your leg is like just tucked right up into your body. I think that's like one of like the key things of when you start to get higher edge angle, is that your like leg, folds right up in your body. It's like one of those like folding camping chairs. It just kind of like just like folds right up into your chest, and it's out of the way. It's just kind of like hovering over the snow. But trying to like keep that knee into trying to drive that into the slope is important.
Yeah, nice. I can't wait to get back out there and give it a go. Right. Well, yeah, that's everything from my end. I will pass over to Dave now to run you through how to actually improve your edge similarity.
Cool. Thanks, Charlie. It's really cool to see all that data and be able to analyze it in so much detail. So thanks for that. It's good to see you again, Ted. Hope you've been well. So really enjoying the talk so far. I mean, I know I've kind of know all the content, but it's still good to see it all again. I think, people have heard a lot about how good you are, which never gets old for me, but and what makes your turn so unique in the data. But I think now we need to talk about how do we get all of our listeners, closer to your perfect turn. So I think we're going to start with a quick poll. The first question is going to be, can you tell us, so you, the listeners, can you tell us where do you notice poor edge similarity? So like what kind of scenarios do you find maybe you're suffering? So there's a few options: snowplow, stem Christies, or wedge turns, or step turns even, wobbling kind of inside leg, A-frames when you're carving. Got a lot of people saying A-framing, but we've got a lot of wobbly inside legs as well. And yeah, still wobbly inside legs creeping up a bit. So we're going to do another poll as well straight after this one. And this one is, so when do you notice your edge similarity suffering? So like what kind of terrain and that kind of thing. So, off-piste, on ice, bumps, steeps, in the trees, when it's really heavy or slushy snow. For me, I notice it suffering. I get a little bit of A-frame when I'm trying to really rip. Obviously nowhere near as bad as Ted, but when I'm trying to lay it over, that's when I notice I'm using my inside crutch a bit, inside leg as a crutch.
Ice and steeps. I bet Ted will have some tips for those.
Yeah, so we might have to come back to some of these. So ice and steeps. Ice taking a decent lead at the moment, but bumps and steeps fairly close behind. Cool. So that's really interesting. So hopefully we're going to go through some stuff that will help with what you guys are saying, where you find your edge similarity poor. So with that, we'll move on to, this has already been announced, but the update is now live, which is really exciting. So quick plug to go and update your app to get the latest version. The Train with Olympian mode is now live, so you can all go and use it, which is very exciting. And this is one of the ways in the app to improve your edge similarity, as it's the foundation of the whole mode. Which obviously Charlie and Ted have just spent a decent amount of time speaking about. So what we'll do now is we're going to dive into some kind of specific things that we can talk about to help improve that edge similarity. So Ted, for our green gurus and our parallel perfectors out there, we've talked about how foundational this skill is, and so obviously that kind of starts at the beginning of the journey. So what would you recommend for someone like we've got in the GIF here, to improve their edge similarity?
I think for, improving somebody who's just trying to get into some parallel skiing is going on like a really flat slope and just trying to put together a couple railroad turns where you're actually trying to be on a clean edge. As like kind of a thing when I like think about all my skiing and like doing drills, is I try to do all my drills on an arc, largely just because that's like what it feels like to do normal skiing. But I love railroad turns. I like still do railroad turns if I'm on a cat track or on something really low level where I can just try to work on having both shins just like perfectly parallel, everything moving in unison, feet same width apart, is a great way to like try to keep your shins parallel. Like, you know, almost I feel like most of the time you have to like exaggerate the feeling of edge similarity. So like feeling like you're super bow-legged. You know, we talk about like having magnets repel your knees, and various things like that. I think we have like a variation on here too, where like when you're doing railroad tracks, you can have your inside hand on pushing on the outside of your inside knee. So that actually like focuses like using those muscles to push that inside knee further and further over. So you can kind of feel what that muscle activation feels like. But I think these kind of things are really important to try on, you know, really moderate to flat terrain where you can do it just super clean, not having to like worry about speed control. I think when you're doing drills like this, you want to start on a slope where you don't have to worry about speed control. And I generally would rather see like 2 or 3 nice clean turns than if you have to speed control than doing speed control the whole way. But yeah, I think that's a great drill for anybody at any level, but especially, you know, aspiring, you know, parallel skiers to archers is getting on something, you know, very flat and just like testing their ability on that level.
Cool, thanks. And you touched on something there that I think, you know, we talked about it a lot when we were developing the mode, and it kind of goes through the whole experience. And it's one thing that you've talked about a lot is inside leg control. And you mentioned there, you know, it's about pushing the inside leg over and using, you know, the magnets to repel the knees. So, you know, why, you know, a lot of people spend a lot of time thinking about their outside leg when they're skiing. Why should you think about your inside leg?
Your inside leg. So if you think about just tipping your inside leg, automatically your outside leg follows suit. I don't think I've ever seen anybody out there skiing with a higher edge angle on their inside leg than their outside leg. It just naturally follows through. So often like I think about starting my turn with my inside knee, and that is just a focus that like brings both knees kind of in at the same time. That's just kind of like a cue that sounds counterintuitive, but just happens. And one like kind of trick that if you think about like outside ski pressure is edge similarity, like naturally doing railroad track type turns, you kind of ski more two-footed. I think like when you're initially starting to do these types of skiing, like your weight level is going to be 50-50, but kind of a trick around that is trying to do like a hamstring curl on your inside leg. So like if you think about like if you're in a hamstring curl machine, you're trying to pull your heel to your butt. We'll try to do kind of the same thing with your inside leg. So you end up getting, you know, good shin pressure, but also that lifts some pressure off your inside ski. So it naturally brings you more over your outside edge, but keeps the edge similarity going and that pressure on the front tongue of the boot, on the inside leg.
Cool. I think we'll touch on that little hamstring curl trick. I know that's something that really helped me as well when we talked about it. So we'll move on to our kind of more intermediate levels, the kind of calf cadets out there. You can see someone here in the GIF, maybe they've got a bit of that wobbly inside leg that I know a lot of people are concerned about. So, you know, for a kind of intermediate like this, what kind of drill would you recommend? What kind of thing do you think they should be thinking about when they're trying to improve their edge similarity?
I think as like a general theme in skiing is like, I think of skiing from the ground up. So like turns start from your feet and then go up to from your feet and ankles to your knees to your hips. And then, you know, using your upper body as a tool to help on all those pieces. So like what you generally see for something like in the last slide is like people turning with their hips or their upper body, their shoulders. So trying to think about, you know, using the knees and ankles to start the turn first, just kind of segmenting that little piece out instead of trying to like turn the skis to their shoulders or their hips. I mean, that person, and I see this a lot with people who are just like trying to learn how to carve is like they start the turn with, you know, rotating their hips down the fall line or try to push their butt around to get the tail of their ski loose to control speed. So, trying to think about skiing from the ground up, tipping the feet over is a crucial piece.
Great tip there. Thanks, Ted. And then last but not by any means least, our kind of carve connoisseurs, those people that are maybe have an A-frame, maybe didn't know they had an A-frame, maybe they'll go and have a look at their data and find out they're doing it or not. But for those A-framers out there, me included, what kind of drill should we be thinking about?
I mean, this style skier is like so close to having it. When you're like already ripping arcs on your outside turn, it's just a matter of confidence really to like start to tip that ski. So we're talking about, trying to start the turn with the inside knee is a crucial piece. And I think the hamstring curl is like the perfect tip in this regard because there you go. You got the hamstring curl machine. Yeah, because that gets the inside leg engaged, inside knee tipping over, but also often what happens, and this happens to me a lot, like in my racing, is like tipping the inside ski over. But like one of the things you'll see a lot is like they're doing the flying V, which is where your inside foot goes out way in front of your body. It's like kind of a stabilizer. If you're to see this picture from the side, if like their skis are like this way, but if you're to turn it that way, their like inside leg is way in front of their outside leg in order to get shin pressure over their outside. That's why they're able to carve the outside ski. So just it's more about pulling that inside foot back than it is about trying to get over your body on the inside leg. So I think more about pulling the inside foot back than getting forward over the knee. And I think that's like a good way to keep the outside ski pressure, keep the shin pressure that they have going, that allows them to pull a nice radius in the outside foot, but then bringing that foot back, their inside foot back, so they can actually use it to pull the radius around. They can actually start to make more balanced and more dynamic turns, and then they can start to have, a little bit more rebound of the ski, and then they start to be able to play with those radiuses more, because when you're doing, that inside A-framey, you're really locked into one radius. Like you're only going to be able to pull, GS to super G turn style radiuses because the other ski isn't helping work for you.
And I know that is something, like I said earlier, that we talked about this in development. Then next time I went out on snow, I was just thinking about that so much, and actually it's already started to help me. So yeah, I think that's a really, really cool, interesting piece of advice. I think we've got one more drill that's, maybe a bit more towards the advanced level, but I do think, again, like it's something when you're getting a really good edge similarity down, you can start to practice it, I think, like you said, on a number of different slopes. So should we just have a quick look at that one as well?
Yeah. So another one I like is J turn. So it's just isolating a single turn. Obviously important when you're doing this, like looking up the hill so you don't get like careened by somebody skiing down. But with this, because it's just one turn, you can just go straight down the hill and then start the turn just with the inside ski, and that'll bring it around. And just really like isolating that feeling. And then as you get better, like a beginner intermediate can do this on a really flat slope, but an expert could go do it on a pretty steep slope, and you can get some pretty extreme angles when you do this. Like the further you go straight down the hill, the more speed you can get, and then you can really try to crank the edge angle up. But starting that turn, because you're going just straight down from a flat ski, if you just start it with the inside edge, you're able to isolate that, I think, better with a single turn to just get that feeling of that inside ski tipping over first.
I think this is a really good one for, trying to help with that. You're just practicing one turn, you're going all the way, you say face back up the mountain. So it's not like you're going to kind of lose control and fly down the slope. You're just trying, just nail it one by one, and then you can obviously string them together.
Yeah, it's an isolated, controlled environment. So, and you can kind of pick the pitch, based on where you feel like you are in your progression.
Cool, great. So those are some really interesting, I think, quite specific and hopefully scenario and skill level based tips or drills to try and have a go at if you're struggling with edge similarity, or even if you're not struggling with edge similarity, just to practice it and make sure you got it down. But again, when we were building the new mode, Ted, we talked a lot about what kind of things can you do, should you do to improve your skiing, and I think you came up with some really nice. Well, not came up with. You told us or me some really great generic advice, and I just wondered if you could take us through a few of these kind of more general tips as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I already kind of touched on this, but I might be an anomaly in this, but I always believed in trying to do drills on an arc, because then you could actually feel how manipulating whatever the drill is, whether it's airplane turns or a javelin turn or railroad tracks, doing it on an arc, you can actually feel how it changes the radius, or how it changes your feeling on a clean edge. So trying to do drills on a slope where you can do things on a clean arc. So you're eliminating speed control as a factor, I think is really important. So that's 1 and 2. And then of course, if like you're trying to arc well, like most people I see out there are out there on like their 110s, fun powder skis. They're fun, but they're not the skis that are going to allow you to be able to arc, especially, when the snow is a little bit harder. So definitely, like, I love going out and skiing I ski mostly on like some headcore 93s, which are on the fat side, but it's like a good jack of all trades ski. They're not perfect when it's icy, but like on general days, like a 90, 80 something 90 underfoot is like a great jack of all trades kind of ski, and allows you to like really push your ability arcing. I think also, like, once you start to like help yourself, you said in the poll, like ice, people feel like they lose a lot of their edge, or like have more of an A-frame on ice, like a sharp edge. I like get really nervous when I go ski out there and my edges are like serrated butter knives. And that makes it hard. So I think like keeping your equipment in top shape is really important as well. And then also like on those, like having a sharp edge, I mean, I think that using like the hamstring style curl to get the outside ski pressure and trying to get the edge similarity is one of those things, touching on that. And then boots, like I am still stuck in my race mode, so I definitely like ski on, like I'm skiing a size bigger than I did when I raced, but I still have to unbuckle my boots at the bottom. But I think having boots that fit correctly, are snug and not just bounce around, comfortable, is a really important piece too, just to like have general performance.
Awesome, those are really good tips, and I know I should probably take the gear one a little bit more to heart and ski on some proper carving skis as opposed to on tens on the foot. So I think thanks very much for that. Really cool. I think we're going to move on to a bit of Q&A now.
That leads in very nicely actually to a lot of questions that have been coming through in the chat whilst we've been going, Ted. So a lot of those have been around gear, maybe unsurprisingly, because you're probably very keen on fine-tuning your gear, as you said. Specifically around, we had a question from Peter. How important do you believe that ski edge angle tuning is to carving, and to what degree of like fine tuning, what degree your edges are at?
I think it really depends on the snow conditions, but if the snow gets a little bit harder, you need to have a sharp edge. I think a 3 degree is kind of like the best sharp. You don't need anything more. I think 3 degree is, I think, like the best, like all around kind of thing. Maybe a 2 degree is workable, but I think, 3 degree is kind of the best place to start. Makes your edges really sharp. And I think that's key. I mean, generally when you're out there skiing, you're going to hit ice patches. And if your edges are sharp, you don't even think about it.
Thank you. I think that answers both Peter and Bogdan's question about ski tuning. You also mentioned that it depends on conditions. As you were running through the drills, specifically the railroad drill, question came in that was around how you account for different conditions around snow. I'm assuming that peak season, great snow, and then into late or early season when it's not so great. How would you let that shape your practice and your skiing?
There's generally always a cat track on your way back to the lift or to the run you're skiing on. So that's like a great place to work on something like railroad tracks. You don't have to be pulling the ski around a ton. You can just kind of like do some like little swizzly ones if that fits. I mean, there's always a place for that. I mean, we go out skiing for fun, so it's not like we want to spend all day doing drills, but I think there's sections in the mountain, like the last section going to the lift or going out to the run or the cat track in the middle, that are great places to do things like railroad tracks. And J turns are good because if you pull the radius back up the hill, you don't actually lose that much of the slope either. So I think there's conditions for those every single day. Obviously, if it snows a foot the night before, you should go powder skiing and not worry about drills. And it won't be good snow for good drills anyways. But otherwise, most conditions, you can always do drills.
Thanks. Yeah, I feel like you're lucky over there in nice west of America that you can do that, out. We do more drills than quite often. So another few questions coming in as we've been answering them. One around efficient exercises you recommend to improve knee engagement and flexibility when you're trying to get as big a calf as possible.
I mean, I guess I'm not sure if they're meaning like in the gym or in on the hill. Both. I mean, I think like core and like lower body strength is really important. Like glute med, which is like the little like butt muscle on the sides there, is like a really undertrained muscle. So Google glute med and exercises, but like band walks and stuff like that, I think are like really important for like knee control. I think one thing you kind of do also, like I really like when I talk about like drills, I always talk about like doing them on the cat track or like the super flat thing on the way to like the rest of your skiing, like picking up your one ski and just doing like some one ski skiing, just like inside ski or inside edge, outside edge, just like kind of do like a couple like turns like that on one ski, just picking it up. That engages those muscles and like turns the glute muscles on. Of course, like hip flexibility is important. But I think like having those like hip stabilizer muscles engaged is really crucial, especially, as you start to get bigger and bigger angles.
Brilliant, thanks. And as you gave both, the question and answer came through and said both, please. So perfect, thank you. Couple more questions. So one from Christian: does Ted feel like his body is reacting to the arc of the ski, or does he feel like his body is arcing the ski?
I feel like my body's arcing the ski. It's a symbiotic relationship. Like I am arcing the ski, but then when the ski is on the arc, you're in control of it. Like I can manipulate it from there. So you're not just like, you see some people like when they ski, they like get on an arc and they like locked on and like kind of riding it for dear life. And then they get like shot out of the bottom of the turn. So it's important to, be like proactive throughout the turn, like moving forward with your body. So like one of the things I think we talk about, in TED mode is like having your center of mass go like flowing down towards the apex of the turn and like always going down the hill. And that allows you to be proactive in the turn. And that gives you the ability to, go harder inside if you need to, or also just like hold the edge and not pull a tighter radius. So, moving your center of mass down the hill towards like where your target is. So like, I don't like facing my body straight down the hill. And I don't think you should like focus about going straight down the hill. It's like towards the apex, like the vector is like in the direction kind of like where your like target destination is. So that's kind of like one of the ways I think about it as far as like controlling the arc is like I'm centering my body like down towards, this part of the hill. Like if I'm turning out and I'm sending my body towards like the apex, not like straight down the hill, but like towards that section. And then I can line up better with my skis.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it. I think it kind of dovetails nicely into another question that we had around the hamstring pullback and what impacts that has on your downhill ski. So if you're thinking about the inside ski as a hamstring curl pulling back the inside ski, at the same time, should you be thinking about pulling the downhill ski forward and therefore that influencing your rotary score?
I never think about my outside ski for AF. It's just not something that ever, I think that like naturally happens. Like one of the things we also like talking about in like the app is like the feeling of, so if you're on a spin bike, if you sit on a spin bike, just imagine sitting on a spin bike and spinning it backwards. And so like your downstroke is like your outside foot on the start of the turn. So like it's starting behind you and the apex is the bottom of a downstroke on a bike stroke. And then the release of the turn is the upstroke. So it's coming up underneath you. So there is like this. So I'm just thinking about it. And this way, you know, like, so you're like starting the turn forward, centered, back, like, so you're kind of like undulating in that direction, is kind of like how I think about where I am in the turn. So like, yeah, you're kind of like, I would say pushing behind you at the start of the turn. It's like centered underneath you, and the bottom of the turn, you're like bringing it back up. You're either bringing it back up into your body or like moving onto the new ski. So it kind of depends on like, I don't like have a hard belief on, you know, being up or staying low in the transition. I think that's really like personal to the type of skier you are and your like body type and all that stuff. So like whether it's like a sucking your legs up underneath or like coming up and over, I don't think there's like a singular solution there. But I think like that same motion like ends up being relatable no matter if whether you're tall or short in the transition.
Perfect. Thanks, Ted. We've had one more very important question come through. Because
Yeah.
I love your shirts. Where did you get it?
It's shoes. I don't know where it is. Yeah. We'll logo on it somewhere, but shoes. Yeah.
I'm conscious that we're nearly 10 minutes over. So we have had quite a few more questions come in. And as I warned you at the start, sorry, everyone. I'm not going to be able to get to them all, but please do ask on the community or drop us a message and we will answer whatever we can later on. And thank you everyone for joining. And thank you, Ted, for
Well, thank you guys.
insight. It's been amazing. I think I've learned a lot from going through it with these guys, and hopefully everyone joining has too. But thanks. Look at all these reactions coming in, all these happiness.
Awesome.
End the webinar. A survey will pop up asking you to give us some feedback. Please do if you have a moment, because it helps us make them even better going forward, and we can keep delivering awesome content for you.